Power in relationships, whether personal or professional, is often rooted in one thing: control. This control doesn't always come from authority, but from the ability to maintain emotional strength in difficult situations. Apologizing is often seen as a way to smooth things over or restore peace, but it can also be a tool that undermines your own power. When you apologize, you are admitting fault, and by doing so, you position yourself as the weaker party. Whether you realize it or not, apologizing can make you vulnerable, especially in situations where others may seek to take advantage of your emotional vulnerability. In a professional setting, apologizing for minor mistakes or misunderstandings might seem like a polite gesture, but it can undermine your authority. People will begin to expect apologies from you, and this shifts the power balance in favor of others. Apologizing too often can create a perception of insecurity or weakness, making others feel that they can control or manipulate you. On the flip side, refusing to apologize when the situation doesn't truly call for it sends a clear message: you are in control and do not easily yield to pressure. In relationships, this dynamic is even more evident. Constantly apologizing for small things can make you appear submissive, especially if the apology isn't necessary. People who do not apologize are often seen as more assertive and self-assured, commanding respect without the need for validation. The goal of this section is to shift the audience's thinking. Instead of viewing apologies as a way to resolve conflict, they should view them as a potential weakness, one that can diminish their emotional control and undermine their authority. Machiavelli's teachings on power aren't about being cruel or manipulative for the sake of it. They're about strategic control. In his famous work, The Prince, Machiavelli advises rulers and leaders to always maintain the appearance of strength and authority. When you apologize, especially unnecessarily, you relinquish control and expose yourself as vulnerable. For Machiavelli, power is all about perception, and apologizing can be perceived as a loss of perceived strength. Machiavelli understood that public perception was a key factor in maintaining control. A leader who apologizes too often or seems eager to please others is seen as submissive, a weak figure who doesn't hold the reins of power. On the other hand, refusing to apologize when the situation doesn't demand it helps to preserve the illusion of invulnerability. By standing firm in your position and not apologizing for everything, you give the impression that you control the narrative and will not be swayed by external pressure. It's important to note that Machiavelli didn't promote cruelty for cruelty's sake. His advice was about timing and perception. He understood that in a world where power is constantly shifting, a leader who refuses to apologize unnecessarily will maintain their position. Those who apologize frequently, however, risk being viewed as predictable and weak, and this leaves them open to manipulation. Apologies, in many cases, are seen as a socially acceptable way to resolve conflicts or smooth over tension. However, when you apologize without necessity, you unintentionally give away your power. By apologizing, you admit fault, and in doing so, you allow others to take control of the situation. This is particularly dangerous in professional settings or relationships where respect and authority are crucial. Imagine a leader who apologizes too often. Each time they apologize, they subtly reinforce the idea that they are willing to sacrifice their own strength to maintain peace. Over time, this behavior chips away at their credibility. Instead of being seen as a confident, assertive leader, they begin to be perceived as someone who lacks confidence and is emotionally influenced by the opinions of others. This shift in perception undermines their ability to lead effectively. In personal relationships, this dynamic plays out in a similar manner. Constantly apologizing can make you appear as though you are willing to give up your stance in order to avoid conflict. This behavior can be exploited by others who may see it as a weakness to be taken advantage of. The problem is not that apologizing is inherently bad, it's that it becomes a habit that allows others to control the narrative of the relationship. When you apologize too frequently, you become predictable. People know that they can manipulate your emotions by triggering the need to apologize. This can create an unhealthy power dynamic where you are no longer seen as an equal participant, but as someone who is easily swayed by guilt or the fear of confrontation. By refusing to apologize when it's unnecessary, you regain control of the situation and shift the power back to where it belongs, in your hands. In your hands. This section's goal is to show the subtlety of power loss. Apologizing may seem like a simple act, but it can have lasting consequences on how others perceive you. The more you apologize, the more you reinforce the idea that you are willing to yield. And that can cost you your emotional control, respect, and ultimately, your power in any situation. One of the greatest risks of apologizing too often is that it makes you predictable. And in power dynamics, predictability is the enemy of strength. When you apologize, you show that you are willing to yield, and others begin to anticipate this behavior. The more you apologize, the more people will come to expect it. And the more they expect it, the less control you have over the situation. Predictability makes you vulnerable because it allows others to control the pace and direction of interactions. If someone knows that you will apologize after a minor conflict, they may start using this to their advantage. This creates a pattern in which your emotional responses are easily anticipated, and those around you can manipulate the situation accordingly. They know that you will apologize, and they leverage this knowledge to achieve their own goals. In professional settings, being predictable can significantly weaken your leadership abilities. Leaders who are predictable are seen as submissive. They give in too easily, without considering the bigger picture. This makes them less effective in managing teams or negotiations. For instance, if a leader constantly apologizes after every mistake, team members may begin to question their competence and confidence. Instead of respecting their authority, they may take advantage of their predictable emotional responses. In personal relationships, this predictability can lead to manipulation. Partners, friends, or family members may learn that apologizing always leads to you backing down or altering your position. This creates a dynamic where you are no longer seen as an equal, but as someone who always gives in to avoid conflict. The more you apologize, the more others will expect it, and this creates a power imbalance that ultimately works against you. This section emphasizes the importance of emotional unpredictability in maintaining control. Those who are unpredictable are much harder to manipulate, and their emotional resilience becomes a form of power. By choosing when to apologize and when to stand firm, you regain control over the power dynamics in any relationship. Control over your emotional responses is one of the most effective ways to avoid being manipulated by others. Apologizing too often comes at an emotional cost. While it may seem like a simple, courteous gesture, apologizing repeatedly can drain your energy and leave you feeling exhausted. This exhaustion doesn't just come from the act of apologizing itself, but from the mental effort it takes to constantly analyze your behavior, second-guess your actions, and justify your decisions. This emotional cycle can leave you feeling emotionally drained, and in many cases, it can lead to a loss of mental clarity. When you apologize, you often do so with the intent of restoring harmony or keeping the peace. But over time, this can become a habit, a reflex. The more you apologize, the more it becomes a default behavior, which means you're continuously draining your emotional resources. Instead of spending that energy on more important aspects of your life or work, you end up wasting it on appeasing others. This emotional drain leaves you feeling weakened and less capable of asserting yourself when the situation demands it. Moreover, apologizing too frequently can cause you to feel vulnerable. Every apology sends a subtle message that you are emotionally impacted by the situation, and that vulnerability can be exploited by others. When you allow yourself to be continuously vulnerable, it becomes harder to maintain emotional strength. This not only affects your emotional well-being, but also diminishes your mental fortitude, leaving you more susceptible to manipulation. In relationships, the emotional toll of apologizing too often can also lead to feelings of resentment. Over-apologizing can make you feel as if you're constantly the one giving in or compromising, which builds up over time. This can lead to emotional burnout, where you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do anything that might offend others. The emotional cost of this can be exhausting, and it can erode the quality of your relationships, both personal and professional. This section emphasizes the importance of emotional preservation. By choosing when and where to apologize, you conserve your emotional energy and avoid putting yourself in a position where you're constantly giving away your strength. When you refuse to apologize unnecessarily, you protect yourself from the emotional toll that constant self-justification and appeasing behaviors can take on your mental and emotional health. Emotional control is vital to maintaining not just power, but also self-respect. Emotional control is one of the most powerful tools you can possess, and silence is one of the most effective ways to maintain that control. When you choose not to apologize, you also choose to hold your emotional reactions in check, sending a clear message that you are not easily influenced by others' demands or emotions. Silence isn't about withdrawing or avoiding confrontation. It's about strategic restraint. It's a tool that allows you to think clearly, to assess the situation without being swayed by your emotional impulses. In situations of conflict, most people's first instinct is to react emotionally, whether it's through an apology, an explanation, or an emotional outburst. However, reacting in such a way often relinquishes control of the situation. The moment you apologize, you make yourself vulnerable to the other party's influence. Instead, by practicing silence, you assert dominance over your emotions, keeping them from dictating your behavior. Silence allows you to control the pace of the interaction, enabling you to respond when you are ready, not when others push you to. Think about the times you've been in a heated conversation. Did you feel compelled to apologize quickly to end the tension? In doing so, you might have lost power, given the situation. Now imagine instead choosing to remain silent, allowing the other person to reveal more about their intentions or reactions. In doing so, you gain valuable insights into the dynamics at play without getting emotionally tangled. Silence, when used effectively, lets you stay centered in the face of emotional chaos. It gives you the ability to respond with precision, rather than reacting impulsively. Moreover, silence allows you to observe the other person's behavior. People are often compelled to fill the silence with words. This is when they reveal the most about their true intentions, vulnerabilities, or weaknesses. While they speak, you have the opportunity to strategize, maintain your composure, and control your emotional environment. By choosing silence over an apology, you are saying, "I do not need to explain myself. I will wait until I am ready to speak." This act alone gives you a psychological edge over those who are emotionally driven. In the context of avoiding apologies, silence isn't about being passive or indifferent. It's a powerful way to protect your emotional energy and assert your control in difficult situations. By not immediately reacting or apologizing, you reinforce your mental toughness and emotional resilience. The true power of silence lies in your ability to choose it deliberately, not as an avoidance tactic, but as a strategic means of staying in control. Silence enables you to be calm while others may react emotionally, and it positions you as a person who is not easily manipulated by external forces. There is power in strategic absence, especially when it comes to apologies. The idea of not apologizing might seem counterintuitive to many, but when used properly, it can give you a significant psychological edge. Apologizing too frequently can undermine your position in both personal and professional relationships. The key is to understand that you don't have to apologize for every misstep or mistake. In fact, choosing not to apologize in many cases can enhance your influence and command respect from others. When you don't apologize unnecessarily, you're sending a message that you don't need to seek validation. You aren't emotionally dependent on others' opinions of you, and you are secure in your stance. This lack of emotional dependence actually increases your value in the eyes of others. People are naturally drawn to those who are assertive, who do not constantly seek approval or second-guess their actions. By withholding an apology, you're asserting your self-confidence and showing that you don't feel the need to plead for forgiveness. The absence of apologies also puts you in a position of strategic control in relationships. If you're someone who always apologizes, people will start to expect it from you. They will push you to apologize at the slightest hint of conflict, which diminishes your authority. However, when you stop apologizing, people begin to adjust their behavior to accommodate your boundaries. This subtle shift gives you leverage, as others realize they cannot easily manipulate you into admitting fault when it isn't necessary. Strategic absence also helps you maintain psychological distance. Apologizing often ties you emotionally to others, creating a vulnerable connection. When you refuse to apologize unnecessarily, you maintain a healthy emotional boundary that allows you to think clearly and maintain control over the situation. The more you control your emotional responses, the more powerful you become, as you are not easily swayed by guilt, social pressure, or external expectations. By refusing to apologize when it isn't warranted, you assert that you are not easily moved by external forces. Instead of apologizing to pacify others or avoid discomfort, you maintain your position and stay grounded in your convictions. This not only increases your emotional strength, but also shifts the power dynamics in your favor. People begin to see you as someone who is resilient and unwavering, and they respect you for it. The strategic absence of apologies, therefore, isn't about being stubborn. It's about empowering yourself and reinforcing your personal strength. Not apologizing can significantly increase your leverage in both professional and personal relationships. In the traditional view, an apology is seen as a way to restore balance or maintain peace. However, when used strategically, not apologizing allows you to control the dynamics of the relationship. Refusing to apologize can send a clear message. You are in control, and you are not easily swayed by external pressures or emotional manipulation. People who apologize constantly are seen as easier to control. They give up their power by admitting fault when it is not necessary. When you refuse to apologize, you demonstrate that you do not need validation or approval to maintain your self-respect. This instantly makes you more respectable in the eyes of others. People subconsciously recognize that those who don't apologize are often stronger and less likely to be manipulated. As a result, they will treat you with more respect and caution. By not apologizing, you also increase your strategic leverage. Think about a negotiation or a business meeting. If you are the type of person who always apologizes for mistakes or disagreements, others may start to take advantage of your willingness to concede. They will expect you to back down or admit fault at the slightest push. However, when you stop apologizing and instead focus on asserting your position, you give the impression that you stand firm in your beliefs. This makes others think twice before trying to push you around. The most powerful individuals are those who understand that leverage comes from emotional control. By not apologizing unnecessarily, you create a sense of mystique. Others do not know when you will yield, and this unpredictability makes them more cautious when dealing with you. They begin to respect your boundaries and adjust their behavior accordingly. This shift in the power dynamic allows you to take control of the situation, whether in a professional setting or in personal interactions. In essence, not apologizing creates a form of strategic distance, where others must work harder to gain your attention or approval. It increases your emotional resilience, making you less vulnerable to manipulation. By refusing to apologize unnecessarily, you are reinforcing your position as someone who is in charge of their emotions and unafraid to stand firm in their beliefs. Machiavelli's teachings in The Prince emphasize the importance of control in every aspect of leadership. One of his key pieces of advice is that rulers should always maintain the appearance of strength. For Machiavelli, power is not about being morally right or virtuous. It's about projecting strength and confidence to maintain dominance in any situation. Leaders must not show signs of weakness, whether through excessive humility or, notably, through frequent apologies. Control, for Machiavelli, is about emotional restraint and strategic positioning. Leaders must manage their emotions and avoid showing vulnerability. Apologizing, especially when it is unnecessary, opens the door for others to exploit your weaknesses. Instead of apologizing, Machiavelli advised that leaders should focus on shaping perceptions and maintaining their position of authority. Emotional control is key. Leaders who lose control over their emotions and apologize for every perceived slight open themselves to manipulation. In a Machiavellian framework, leadership is about presence, your ability to command respect without the need for constant validation or justification. Maintaining control over your emotions and reactions ensures that others respect you as someone who is ruthless in their pursuit of power, yet strategic in their actions. Emotional control doesn't mean being cold or indifferent. It means being deliberate and in control of your responses, which ultimately ensures that you maintain dominance in any situation. Machiavelli understood that perception is a powerful weapon in the game of power. In The Prince, he stressed that leaders must always be aware of how they are perceived by others, because perception often determines reality. The way people view you, especially in positions of authority, can directly influence how much power you hold. Leaders who are seen as strong and decisive are often treated with respect and deference, even if their actual decisions or actions may not always be perfect. The perception of strength, whether through emotional control, strategic actions, or decisiveness, becomes reality. This is why Machiavelli encouraged leaders to manage their public image carefully. Apologizing or appearing vulnerable can erode this perception, which is why he advised avoiding unnecessary apologies that could make you seem weak or uncertain. One key aspect of perception is that it allows leaders to manipulate how others interpret their actions. When you control how people perceive you, you also control the narrative. For example, a leader who projects confidence but never shows emotional vulnerability is seen as someone who cannot be easily manipulated or intimidated. Others will treat them with respect, fear, and reverence, knowing that their decisions are grounded in strong self-control and decisiveness. In essence, perception gives power its shape. Machiavellian leaders use perception to create an image of strength that solidifies their position of authority. How you are seen determines how much power you actually wield. If you fail to manage that perception, you risk losing control of your influence. Machiavelli's philosophy on power includes a profound understanding of manipulation. For him, manipulation isn't about overtly controlling others, it's about subtly shifting perceptions and using the psychological vulnerabilities of others to your advantage. The art of manipulation, according to Machiavelli, is to influence others without them realizing that they are being controlled. It's not about using brute force or coercion. It's about strategically guiding others toward your desired outcome. Manipulation works most effectively when it's indirect. Rather than forcing a decision or confrontation, you can manipulate others by changing how they see the situation. For instance, by carefully controlling information, a leader can make others feel as if they are in control of a decision, even though the leader has already guided them to that conclusion. This subtle shift in perception creates a sense of independence for the manipulated person, while giving the leader complete control of the situation. One key tactic of manipulation is creating ambiguity. By not providing clear answers, a Machiavellian leader forces others to fill in the gaps, often projecting their own assumptions and desires. This ambiguity allows the leader to guide the situation while maintaining the appearance of fairness and neutrality. Another common strategy is the delayed response. By not reacting immediately to situations, you force others to take the first move, giving you the advantage to control the narrative from the sidelines. In the Machiavellian approach, manipulation is about control through perception. By carefully guiding how others see themselves, their circumstances, and their options, you create a situation where they follow your lead without ever realizing they were being manipulated. In both personal and professional relationships, perception is often more important than reality. Machiavelli understood this deeply, which is why he emphasized the need for leaders to carefully manage how others see them. The power of perception allows you to control interactions, dictate the flow of conversations, and assert dominance without overt force. When you master how you are perceived, you essentially control the relationship dynamics. In relationships, people often react not to your actual actions, but to how they interpret them. This means that how you present yourself can determine whether others view you as powerful, influential, or vulnerable. By carefully managing your emotions, reactions, and the way you communicate, you shape how others respond to you. This allows you to guide the direction of the relationship, often without the other person even realizing it. For example, when engaging with others, you don't need to assert yourself verbally every time. Instead, nonverbal cues, body language, and timing can all play a significant role in conveying strength and control. The ability to remain composed, calm, and measured in situations where others may become emotional or reactive gives you an edge in managing how you're perceived. Those who can maintain their composure and project confidence are seen as leaders in the relationship, and others naturally defer to them. Mastering the power of perception doesn't mean manipulating others. It means controlling your emotional responses and shaping your interactions in a way that strengthens your position and influence, creating an unspoken authority that others naturally respect and follow. Machiavellian principles are often viewed through the lens of power dynamics in politics or leadership, but they can also be highly effective in personal relationships. In these situations, the key is emotional control and strategic positioning. By practicing emotional restraint and being mindful of how others perceive you, you can avoid being manipulated or taken advantage of. One important application is in how you respond to conflict. Often, people feel the need to immediately defend themselves or apologize when faced with criticism or disagreement. By applying Machiavellian tactics, you can choose to remain calm and non-reactive, which allows you to gain control of the situation. Instead of rushing to offer an apology or explanation, you can wait, observe, and allow the other person to reveal their intentions and emotions. This approach puts you in a position where you control the flow of the conversation, rather than reacting impulsively. In relationships with friends or family, boundaries become a crucial aspect of maintaining power. Setting clear, non-negotiable boundaries prevents others from exploiting your willingness to be accommodating. By avoiding excessive apologizing and staying firm in your values, you assert that your emotions and time are valuable, and that respect must be mutual. Over time, this builds stronger, more balanced relationships where you are respected, not because of your compliance, but because of your emotional strength and self-respect. In the workplace, Machiavellian principles can be applied to strengthen your leadership skills and professional relationships. One of the most important concepts is emotional control, particularly in high-stress or confrontational situations. Leaders who don't apologize unnecessarily and who remain composed in difficult scenarios are often perceived as more confident and reliable. This perception directly enhances their authority and influence. Strategic silence plays a major role in professional environments, especially during negotiations or team meetings. Instead of immediately jumping in to defend your position or respond to challenges, pausing gives you time to assess the situation, understand others' intentions, and plan your response. This also forces others to fill the silence, often revealing more than they intended. In negotiations, silence can act as a psychological tool to pressure others into making concessions. In team dynamics, avoiding unnecessary apologies can also help build respect. Apologizing for every minor mistake diminishes your credibility and can make you seem insecure. By only apologizing when absolutely necessary, you show that you have confidence in your abilities and that you're not easily swayed by external pressures. This reinforces your leadership and encourages others to respect your decisions, even if they don't always agree with you. By applying Machiavellian principles in a professional context, you position yourself as someone who commands respect, maintains emotional control, and wields influence without having to apologize or justify your actions. These traits not only make you more effective as a leader, but also enhance your ability to navigate power dynamics in any professional environment.